My name is Lucy. I was 12 years old when I died, and I want to tell you about how the adults who were supposed to protect me all failed me. And how, after my death, I made sure they understood exactly what that failure cost. Not just me, but them. I lived with my mother Sarah and my stepfather Robert in a nice house in a quiet neighborhood. To everyone on the outside, we looked like the perfect family. Robert was a respected insurance agent, active in our church, always volunteering for community events. My mother was a teacher at the elementary school. They seemed like model citizens. But behind closed doors, Robert was a monster. He started hitting me when I was 9, always in places where the bruises wouldn't show. He would call me names, tell me I was worthless, and make me do things that I knew were wrong. Things that made me feel dirty and scared. I tried to tell people. I really did. I told my mother, my teachers, the school counselor, even a police officer who came to speak at our school. But nobody believed me. Robert was too respected, too charming, too good at playing the perfect stepfather in public. Lucy has a vivid imagination, my mother would tell people. She's been having trouble adjusting to having a new father figure. Sometimes children make up stories for attention. The adults in my life chose to believe a lie because it was easier than dealing with the truth. They failed me over and over again, until finally, their failure killed me. But death gave me something I never had while I was alive. Power. And I used that power to make sure everyone who abandoned me paid the price for their cowardice. The first time I tried to tell someone about Robert was when I was 10. I had bruises on my ribs from where he had kicked me for breaking a glass, and I was so scared and desperate that I told my teacher, Mrs. Anderson. I pulled up my shirt and showed her the purple marks. My stepfather did this, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. He hits me all the time. And he touches me in ways that feel wrong. Mrs. Anderson looked uncomfortable and told me to put my shirt down. Lucy, that's a very serious accusation. Are you sure you're not just having problems adjusting to your new family situation? Sometimes children blame step-parents for normal discipline. She called my mother instead of Child Protective Services. That night, Robert beat me worse than ever before and told me that if I ever lied about him again, he would make sure I regretted it. I tried again with the school counselor, Mr. Peterson. I drew pictures of what Robert did to me because I didn't have words for it. Mr. Peterson looked at my drawings and said, "Lucy, I think you're confused about appropriate family affection. Sometimes children misinterpret normal interactions." He called it normal interactions. Normal. When I was 11, I finally got the courage to approach Officer Martinez, who had come to talk to our class about safety. After his presentation, I stayed behind and told him everything. The hitting, the touching, the threats, the fear. Officer Martinez listened, then patted my head and said, "Sweetheart, I know Robert Thompson personally. He's a good man who's very active in our community. Sometimes when parents discipline us, it feels unfair, but that doesn't mean they're bad people." He didn't file a report. He didn't investigate. He treated my desperate plea for help like a child's tantrum about getting grounded. The worst betrayal came from my own mother. I tried so many times to make her understand what Robert was doing to me. I showed her bruises, told her about the touching, begged her to believe me. But she loved Robert, or at least she loved the life he provided. She would get angry at me for making up stories and would ground me for trying to break up our family. She chose him over me every single time. As I got older and continued trying to tell people the truth, Robert's abuse got worse. He was angry that I wouldn't stay quiet, that I kept embarrassing him with my lies. He started hurting me more severely, threatening to kill me if I didn't stop talking. The night I died, I had tried one last time to get help. There was a new teacher at school, Miss Kelly, who seemed kind and caring. I thought maybe she would be different. Maybe she would believe me. I wrote her a letter describing everything Robert had done to me over the past 3 years. Every beating, every inappropriate touch, every threat. I gave her specific dates, described the injuries, even told her where Robert hid the belt he used to hit me. Miss Kelly read the letter and called my mother for a conference. Instead of helping me, she handed my mother the letter and suggested I see a therapist for my behavioral issues and attention-seeking behavior. When I got home that night, Robert was waiting for me. He had read my letter, and he was furious. Angrier than I had ever seen him. "You just can't learn to keep your mouth shut, can you?" he said, holding the belt. "I've been patient with you, tried to teach you respect, But you keep lying about me. Well, tonight you're going to learn what happens to liars. He beat me for over an hour. With the belt, with his fists, kicking me when I fell down. My mother watched from the doorway, crying but not stopping him. She brought this on herself, she whispered. Why can't she just be good? When Robert finally stopped, I was lying on the floor, unable to move, blood in my mouth, pain everywhere. Clean yourself up, he said. And if you ever try to lie about me again, this will seem like a love tap. I crawled to my room and collapsed on my bed. I was hurt worse than I had ever been before, but I was also done. Done trying to get help from adults who didn't want to help. Done hoping that someone would save me. I went to sleep that night not knowing I would never wake up. I died sometime during the night from internal bleeding that Robert's beating had caused. My mother found me the next morning, cold and still in my bed. Robert called 911 and played the devastated stepfather perfectly. I don't understand, he told the paramedics. She seemed fine last night. Maybe she had the flu? She was always such a sickly child. The autopsy showed extensive internal injuries, but Robert had an explanation ready. I had fallen down the stairs the week before, he claimed. I was clumsy and accident-prone. My mother backed up his story, saying I was always getting hurt because I was careless and dramatic. Without any witnesses and with my history of making up stories about Robert, the police ruled my death accidental. Another tragedy, they said. A sick child who succumbed to internal injuries from a fall. All the adults who had failed to protect me attended my funeral. Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Peterson, Officer Martinez, Miss Kelly. They all came and talked about what a troubled but sweet child I had been. They shed tears and talked about how sad it was that I had died so young. But I wasn't gone. Death had freed me from my powerless, vulnerable body and given me abilities I had never had while alive. I could see everything, hear everything, influence the physical world in ways that terrified the people who had abandoned me. And I was angry. Angrier than any 12-year-old should ever have to be. I realized that all these adults were going to go on with their lives, forget about me, and never face any consequences for their failure to save me. Robert would probably hurt other children. My mother would probably ignore the warning signs again. The teachers and counselors and police would continue dismissing children who desperately needed help. That's when I decided that if they wouldn't listen to me while I was alive, they would damn well pay attention to me now that I was dead. I started with Mrs. Anderson, my first-grade teacher who had dismissed my pleas for help. I appeared to her at school, in her classroom, looking exactly like I had the day I died. Small, broken, covered in bruises. You didn't believe me, I told her, my voice echoing strangely in the empty classroom. You saw the bruises, and you chose not to believe me. Now you get to live with knowing that you could have saved me. Mrs. Anderson tried to scream, but no sound came out. I showed her every injury Robert had ever given me, made her feel every blow, every kick, every violation. I wanted her to understand exactly what her failure to act had cost. I haunted her for weeks. She would see me in mirrors, hear my voice calling her name, find pictures of my injuries in her desk drawers. She tried to tell people what was happening, but nobody believed her. You're having a breakdown, they said. You're imagining things. Doesn't that sound familiar, Mrs. Anderson? Nobody believing you when you're telling the truth? Mr. Peterson, the school counselor, was next. I appeared to him during a session with another child who was trying to report abuse. Listen to her, I whispered in his ear. Don't be like you were with me. Don't fail another child. But Mr. Peterson couldn't see me, couldn't hear me clearly. He just felt an overwhelming sense of dread and guilt. He started having nightmares about me, about all the children he might have failed to help over the years. I made sure those nightmares felt real. I made him experience every beating I had endured, every moment of terror, every time I had begged for help and been dismissed. Officer Martinez received visits from me at the police station. I would appear in his patrol car, in the holding cells, in his office. You said Robert was a good man. I would tell him. You said my reports of abuse were just a child being dramatic. Look at me now, Officer Martinez. Look at what your good man did to me. I made sure he couldn't forget my face, couldn't forget the details of what I had told him. Every time he looked in a mirror, he saw me standing behind him, a constant reminder of his failure to protect a child who had asked for his help. My mother was the hardest to confront because part of me still loved her, even though she had chosen Robert over me repeatedly. I appeared to her in my bedroom, sitting on the bed where I had died. "Why didn't you protect me, Mommy?" I asked her, using the name I had called her when I was little. "I told you he was hurting me. I showed you the bruises. I begged you to make it stop. Why did you choose him over me?" My mother broke down completely. She confessed everything to the police: how she had known about the abuse, how she had chosen to ignore it because she was afraid of losing Robert, how she had failed as a mother. But her confession was too late to save me, and I made sure she knew it. I haunted her every night, showing her every injury, every moment of pain, every time I had cried for her help and been dismissed. Robert was my final target, and I saved the worst for him. I didn't just appear to him. I took control of his life completely. I made him relive every act of violence he had committed against me, but this time he experienced it from my perspective. Every punch he had thrown, he felt landing on his body. Every kick, every blow with the belt, every violation. He experienced all of it as if he were a small, helpless child being abused by a monster. I drove him insane with guilt and terror. He confessed to my murder in vivid detail, describing every injury he had caused, every moment of my suffering. He begged for forgiveness, but I had learned something important. Some sins can't be forgiven. Robert died in prison, driven mad by the constant presence of the child he had killed. My mother died of guilt and grief, never able to escape the knowledge that her cowardice had cost her daughter's life. The teachers, counselors, and police who had failed me all left their positions, unable to continue working with children knowing that their failures could cost lives. I'm still here, watching, waiting. Because there are other children like me, children who are being hurt, who are asking for help, who are being dismissed and ignored by adults who don't want to deal with difficult truths. And when those adults fail, when their cowardice and willful blindness costs a child their safety or their life, I make sure they understand the consequences of their choices. I was just a little girl who needed help. All I wanted was for someone to believe me, to protect me, to make the hurting stop. Instead, the adults in my life chose to protect my abuser and abandon me. But I'm not helpless anymore. Now I'm the thing that haunts the dreams of adults who fail children. I'm the voice that whispers in their ears when they choose the easy lie over the difficult truth. I'm the ghost of every child who was failed by the system that was supposed to protect them. And I will never rest until every adult understands that failing to protect a child has consequences that last far beyond death. Believe the children. Save them while you still can. Because once they're gone, their ghosts will hold you accountable forever.